Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. The Neil Haley Show is heard all over the world on television and radio, and we interview celebrities, authors, educators, businesses, and brands, either in Bethel Park's TV studios or on location all over the world, on the radio and on the phone. So check it out and enjoy the show today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. You can check me out on Twitter at TotalTutor, neilhaley.com. And I'm first excited to welcome to the program my co-host, Peter Elvidge. Peter, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I am excited about my guest today. Whenever we get to talk about education, it really excites me. It's the way the whole network started 7.5+ years ago. And this is going to be an interesting debating subject matter. I'm excited to welcome to our program Dr. Cornelius Grove, author of Drive to Learn. Dr. Cornelius, thanks for calling. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's nice weather here in Brooklyn today.
All right, Dr. Cornelius, tell us a little bit about, or Dr. Grove, what is a better way to address you?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Should I address you as Dr. Cornelius or Dr. Grove?
Dr. Grove. Grove is my family name.
Okay. All right. So, Dr. Grove, can you tell us specifically why you wrote the book?
I wrote the book in the most basic sense because I've had a decades-long interest in the cultural factors that are involved in children's education. I have a doctorate in education, and in my studies I put a great deal of emphasis on anthropology, and I ended up really, because of my doctoral dissertation, this is quite a few decades ago, really being fascinated about how cultural factors impact and can benefit or undermine children's learning of academic math, science, reading, and other academic subjects in school. And so I followed through with that during my career, even though I have no connection to any university. I'm not a professor. I actually own and operate a business.
Interesting, Dr. Grove. And what are you seeing in the trends of education all over the world? What are you seeing? I mean, I'm very fed up with what's happening in the United States, especially K through 12 education. But what are you seeing trend-wise?
I am not qualified to talk about education all over the world, but I'm very qualified to talk about the subject of my book, The Drive to Learn. The subtitle of that book, which, by the way, I think is published yesterday, is What the East Asian Experience Tells Us About Raising Students Who Excel. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that there are over 500 studies that look at all aspects of young children's learning.
Okay.
All of the factors that might bear on their learning, not just the classroom factors, but all sorts of other factors, especially what happens in the home. And many of those studies explicitly compared East Asian situation to the American situation. And so there's just a huge mound of data about this, as I say, over 500 studies that the public really just doesn't know anything about.
So looking at the study and then kind of thinking about when you were creating this, what is one thing that we, either as parents or here in the U.S. should be utilizing?
It's not as simple as to say, well, here they're doing this, and we should be using that. When you look at things at the cultural level, that is at the level of values and assumptions and expectations, and at that level, you begin to see the differences between East Asia. Well, this would be true of many parts of the world, not just East Asia, but I'm particularly looking at East Asia, and the differences are very, very deep. They're pretty difficult to see on the surface, but through the painstaking work of hundreds of researchers, I think that and really an amazing understanding has come to be about how we deal with children in America and how we deal with them in East Asia, and how this impacts what happens in classrooms, and especially in terms of simply how much and how well the students learn.
Yes, and so don't you think it's has a lot to do, if you're looking at this, the drive to learn based on East Asia and things like that? Don't you think it has a lot to do with the family? And
Oh, you'll love my book.
Okay.
You will love my book. That is where I end up.
Mm-hmm.
This book does not look at what adult educators do. It doesn't look at teachers. It doesn't look at administrators or educational policymakers. None of that. Explicitly ruled out. I only look at the factors that enable children to learn throughout their environment, and part of that could be what's going on in classrooms.
Right.
But the conclusion I come to is this, and this conclusion is announced on page 3 of the preface. My conclusion is, when compared with East Asian children, American children are less receptive to school learning. Now, what do I mean by receptive? What I mean by receptive is, I mean that a child, first of all, feels deeply committed to learning in school.
Yes.
In other words, is ready. Secondly, expects to work persistently in order to learn well. In other words, is willing. And finally, knows how to participate in the process of learning in school, is able. Ready, willing, and able better describes how children in East Asia arrive in the classroom than it does American children.
Wow. I mean, and you said you came up with that family-wise, but I've always, even when I started this education show, Peter, and I'm going to pass this back to Peter because I know Peter has some definite questions for you, Dr. Grove, is that the frustration I've had as a teacher, as an educational consultant, is how parents do not value education as much as you talked about in East Asia. And Peter, any points, because I know for a fact if you got on our Total Education Hour show with our panelists, they wouldn't be all agreeing with Dr. Grove, Peter, because a lot of educators want to put up their defenses as parents and educators and not to look at what Dr. Grove's looking at. What is your thoughts, Peter?
Well, when I look at education, I look at both sides personally. When I'm thinking about, like, me as a student, and then also in a position of a teacher, just, I've thought of both sides as to, like, how to be active or how to be actively engaged. But my situation is a little bit custom considering I have a disability. So I think factors are a little bit different than kind of doing a generalization. But something I was wondering, though, is, like, when you're talking about kind of like the comparison between the two, and you're looking at students kind of being ready and active and motivated to be, to be in the classroom or to learn in the classroom, what would you recommend on doing for those kids who may not be active or motivated to be ready to be in the classroom, whether it be on the student side or on the teacher side?
What I have found is it's difficult to take all this mound of data and reduce it to some tips for parents or for teachers or administrators about how to engage students who aren't engaged.
Right.
What I came away with from reviewing all this great mass of research was that the answer, in this culture, in this country, we've had decades after decades of school reform. We're all concerned about students.
Right.
Students should learn more. There's wide agreement
Correct.
about this, and many different ideas. Many things have been tried, and everything focuses on what's going on in schools. Looks at teachers,
Yes.
looks at administrators, looks at policymakers, looks at state legislatures. Should they have choice, or should they all go to public school? On and on. Curriculum, teacher training, methods, homework, all of it gets attention. Nobody's looking at the children. The
Definitely.
children are the ones who aren't learning.
Right. They're
They're
not
learning well enough.
well enough compared to East
So
Asia.
the
Yes.
children are part of the problem, and so they've got to be part of the solution. When I look at what's going on in East Asia, based on all this research, I begin to see about how the solution can involve children, and
Yes.
the answer, which Neil came up with a few minutes ago, is that it's really, in the end, it's really about the parents. And in
Yes.
the end, my book is a book for parents.
Mm-hmm. And see, and Dr. Grove, I love that fact, what you're talking about, and how you're able to show the East Asian child and their success and why did they do better. And I know the arguments will be poverty, but ultimately, let's just talk about a working parent home. The amount of time that we spend taking kids to soccer, basketball, football, dance, et cetera, and then the amount of time
Not
that
only
they
taking them,
right,
not only taking them there, but also being enthusiastic about it, cheering them on, expecting them to work hard and practice and
yes.
drill at those sports,
Mhm.
but we don't bring that same determination, which is very American. Can-do effort, pays off. It's all through our history, but it's been lost on
completely.
education.
But I also believe it. So we have to do that in education. But Dr. Grove, I think a lot of people are going through the motions activities that can teach the discipline to do well academically, and they're just going through the motions in those sports. They're just going through the motions. Hey, it's okay to be just participating, doing your best, instead of striving for excellence. And so I think that's one of the go ahead. We're going to say, Dr. Grove.
It's okay.
No. I lost my thought from that. What do you have from that? What I was saying.
Well, again, what I think will happen if you or people who think like you or believe that there's something wrong here. All of you folks are going to find this book, I think, to be very congenial, because I think it's going to give you some concrete ideas about what parents who really deeply, thoroughly care about how well their children learn in school,
Yes.
what that looks like on the ground in the home. In other words, you know how all these studies got started? This goes back to around 1970. Already in the early 1970s, we had the International Comparative Tests. And some researchers in Hong Kong noticed that every time the test results were published, the East Asian students, meaning Chinese, Japanese,
Right.
and Korean, the East Asian students came at or near the top every time.
Wow.
And the Americans came out in the middle or below the middle. And they said, this is very curious, because in America, they're more and more they're using all the latest, most modern educational teaching techniques, and they're progressive in their thinking and so forth. And yet the American students aren't doing well, and these Chinese students who are getting old-fashioned, in very old-fashioned ways of going about things in school. So we gotta figure this out. We have to investigate this. And as the decades rolled on, they were joined by more and more researchers from other nations, Asian nations, Western nations, and you end up with this mass of research. And basically, I think the fundamental finding is that the answer is not about what's happening in schools. The answer is about what's happening in homes.
Great point. Okay, so where can we find information on you, Dr. Grove, and learn more about you? Where can we go?
I have a website for the book which gives quite a lot of information about the book. If anyone can remember the title of the book, The Drive to Learn, then all you have to do is go to thedrivetolearn.info. Notice it's not .com,
okay.
it's not
yes.
.net, it's .info, thedrivetolearn.info.
All right. Well, thanks for calling, Dr. Grove. Take care and best of luck.
Thank you very much.
You're watching The Neil Haley Show and also streaming on the radio network, and we'll be back in just a moment.
I've shown an interest in making home movies. Me and some buddies would just grab a camera and you just start making these videos, and then you realize at some point that this isn't just a hobby anymore, it's something that you actually want to pursue, and there's this great facility right down the road, BPTV. A lot of people will try to do these productions on their own, and one of the things they don't have is the equipment, you know, but right here is everything she needs in one nice little bundle. There's lights, cameras, reflectors, dollies, all kinds of little knickknacks, like anything that you'd want to use that you would need for a production, you have it right here, like it's all right here. You can make your own feature movie just with the stuff from this studio. Come meet Dave Cable, let him show you around, and I think you'll realize that this is something that you could fall into regardless of your level of expertise, whether you're a beginner or even if you're a more advanced learner. There's something here for everyone, and I feel that you just need to come through and just be a part of the experience and just watch and learn, and you know, let Dave be your guide.
We're back to the Neil Haley Show. You can check me out on Twitter at TotalTutor and NeilHaley.com. And Peter, we have a topic to go after right now, and Dr. Grove's opinion that we could have a longer discussion on, but very surprising that he looks at East Asia and believes that we're not driving our kids to learn. Now, that's a controversial topic, and I wanted to kind of go and stress about this for the second segment, waiting on our guest to call. This must be a theme today. The drive to learn. Now, we all know in East Asia, not every student can go on to college. Not every student can be pushed. So to look at numbers, he seems like he's very data-driven when he's comparing East Asia to the United States. Wouldn't you agree, Peter?
Yeah, I would say very data, very number driven. I'm not, an expert, so I'm not going to dismiss or anything like that. But my opinion is with the experience and with looking at the data, I think you also need to kind of be in the classroom and also, talk with active teachers and things, as well as different students, because to find out, not only why is the student not motivated to learn or to be actively involved, but it's also a question of the teacher, but it's also a question of, maybe the environment. And something I was thinking of too is when we have homeschooling,
yes,
is that actually presents another interesting thing, because then the school is the home environment. So how does that work into the data and the playing into that as well?
Not me, but I think he's really looking at the East Asian student and looking at specifically other country of that area of East Asia, and thinking that we need to try to change our attitude about education. I can argue that fact that we need to change our attitude, but if we're looking at numbers, which Jason, the public school guy, which again, the Total Education Hour can be heard Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern on 88.3 FM in Pittsburgh, WRCT, and also on all my syndicated networks, is that the reason we're seeing America declining in certain areas of education, not everywhere, is because of the lack of parental involvement, poverty, all of these expectations. To write a book for, let's say, my school district of Pine Richland and give every one of the parents this book, Drive to Learn, you'd find out many of the parents are already driving them to learn. They are succeeding academically, and it's not such a gap with East Asia. So my question for you, Peter, is he's not looking at what we need to fix in education. That means single family homes, kids that are grown into poverty and to be successful. I think that's one of the things he's missing. Or we didn't have a chance to ask him. We didn't have a chance to ask him. So we'll have to bring Dr. Grove on the program to kind of continue this conversation. But what is your thought?
That's what I was thinking too. It's like it seemed to be on a basis of what we needed to change based on what he found there versus what we need to look at over here. Because there's, although we can look at different countries and look at different data platforms and things like that, see that people are higher or lower than us. Like you said, we have to look at what's going on here. And, I think it's to change how we want to change, not change to someone else's platform, so to speak. I think that's one of the interesting things about the U.S. is we have the creativity and the possibility to create our own types of programs and our own types of ways of doing things. And,
I mean, I just think you're looking at data. When you talk about the PISA and different things, and that was the question I pointed to, what does he see as the trends? But it looks like he wants to focus on East Asia, and that's what our students should be. And that looking at data that we're not caring as American parents. But as the only reason things come out that students are performing better in East Asian countries compared to the United States is because we educate everyone, regardless of disability, regardless of everything. And that's not the case in East Asia. Now, I also would agree that I think the one thing I would agree with Dr. Grove is the fact that we aren't pushing our kids enough academically. We want to put them to become the next basketball star, football star, golf, but we're not looking to create the next doctor, lawyer, engineer, scientist. We're not putting that on a pedestal as academic excellence versus athletic excellence in this country. But I don't think that when we look at numbers, that's the reason why East Asia is performing better than we are. But I wish that we could push kids same way as we push them on the football field, basketball court, soccer field, dance studio, the same way. But that's where I would agree with Dr. Grove. But I think that, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something I'm thinking about what you're saying. I think that what we do is that let's say we have a motivated child that starts doing sports. What we need to do is not see where they're going and then their activity as two separate things. We kind of need to combine them and create a mutual resolution, because that's what I ultimately did. Is when I was in school and I did sports, I'm like, not only do I want good grades to go and do the things that I want to do, but I also wanted to have good grades to do sports, and then also the same thing is I wanted to do good sports for the sake of my schooling. I think that when we separate the two, I think that's the problem, is that I think if we did kind of like a mutual crossover a lot of times, and this can be with many different types of clubs or anything like that, I think that will also create kind of an interest and mutual understanding of, different things out there, as well as a drive to look at different areas, or maybe if they have a specific area they're interested in, to be more interested in it.
Thinking about public education, let's just jump into that whole public education mentality. I wish that striving for excellence would be number one. that they would be highlighting the top students in the classroom compared to athletics. We'll never see that. And that's the society we're in, the celebrity-driven expectation of, wow, you're special. A YouTube star could be more special than somebody who got a perfect score on the SAT. And we'll always have to deal with that. But you look at cultures of East Asia. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. I think that what we're doing is, because we're seeing, like if you look at a YouTube star, you see them as more important than, someone who just became a doctor. I think the thing is because we're not doing a lot of that crossover, because I'm trying to think of a good way of explaining this. It's basically like we have to see them as separate things, but also see them as possibilities for crossover. So like a YouTuber, like being a big YouTuber is a good thing. And then being a doctor is also a great thing, because they have their own definitions and variations of what excellence is. But I think, like, in the sense of merging the two together, it could be like creating YouTube channels, which there is, around like being a doctor, or, learning different techniques and things. I think that when we start creating those kind of mutual crossovers, I think that also helps things as well. At least from my perspective, because I've always liked art, but I've also liked YouTube, and I found out that there's art videos on YouTube.
Right.
So it's kind of grown my social media side
Right.
of things, as well as my artist aspects, and
Dr. Groves completely looking at numbers. Many people are sitting down there looking at numbers. And what makes our country extraordinary is you can be successful in anything you do. We can define how important to teach hard work, to strive academically. However, to look at it on paper, I just don't think that's a good thing. It's a good way to kind of finish that, because I thought I had a lot more thoughts to bring to the table in only a short period of time in this interview. And I thought that's the great point that we're making. We're cutting public education with President Trump's new education budget. The ideas of cutting all these programs. Drive to Learn will not be happening if there's not enough money. So take care, Peter, and we'll talk next week, man, okay?
All right. Sounds good.
All right, cool. That was the Neil Haley Show. You can check me out on Twitter at TotalTutor and neilhaley.com, and we're going to have another exciting guest next week. Stay tuned for that. Make sure, if you're watching on Bethel Park, go ahead and like us on all of our pages. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that like button and that subscribe button. If you're going ahead and watching it on Facebook or wherever you are, like it, share it. We're waiting to hear from you, because that's what makes us continue to do what we do as artists. We're not working from some major, we are expecting feedback from you. So take care, guys, and we'll see you next week. Good day, everyone.
Hi, Bethel Park. Uncle Al speaking. I'm asking you to come help us behind the scenes at BP TV. We're looking for some proud Bethel Park residents to help us make the shows that you want to watch. For more information, contact Station Director Dave Cable, and we will see you behind the cameras at BP TV.